Hi, welcome back to a brand new coffee tech break with Jan. Good to see you back on my channel again. I think I got another great video for you lined up. Today I want to take you through as you can see, a brand new version of the VideoOS, the 4.5.1 release. A lot of exciting new features are in there, and we're talking about creating the baseline for the future. Now, what is important as a householding here, I will make sure that I will chapterize this video, because I know I always, when I start talking, there's also at events or everything where I'm talking, I'm always going across the lines with timing. So I will make sure that I will chapterize the videos. So in the description, in the comments, you can find the chapters to quickly jump to the different parts of the video. What I will also do, I will split it into two parts. So this is the part talking in general about Studio X, but not only about Studio X. Of course, in parallel, we also have an update for the Studio V line to keep the features in line. And also we got the update for the G series, which are the codecs. So I'm gonna make sure that in this video I will talk across the board for the X, the V and the G line, but in general all the updates. In the next video I will talk about the Microsoft updates. There's also a lot of things happening. You've probably seen some messaging about AOSP. I'm gonna demystify that for you. I'm gonna walk you step by step how you're gonna make sure that you onboard your Studio X, your TC10, TC8, and you're gonna onboard them all correctly to AOSP. But that is the next video, so stay tuned for that. I can only say subscribe to my channel. I gotta make sure that you are catch up as soon as I publish that. Now, again, in this first video, I'm gonna jump in a general presentation about the latest and greatest updates, the 4.5.1. If you got any questions or comments, just put them on the video. I'm also gonna make sure that anything that I'm talking about, like the release notes, all the details, gonna make sure that I put the links under the video in the description, so you have them all by hand. And I do that in general in my video, so always check out those descriptions there, when I put on some reference, so you can get some extra details there if needed. Now, I'm gonna show you the update in the general coffee tech Jan format. Hopefully you're going to enjoy it. And yeah, of course, I can only say, let's get started with the update, and don't forget some coffee to bring that with you. All right. Let's get started, because there's quite some information available. I would say get your coffee ready. I'm gonna jump right into it. So the 4.5.1 also include things about the 4.5.0, so these were two updates in the last period. Now, what is always good to know is when the video providers have updates, and Poly has an update, we'll always try to grab the latest and greatest. So from Teams, from Zoom, from any of those providers, we try to grab them. But could be certain situations that the application is not ready yet. But that is no issue. So if Poly, for example, provides the 4.5.1 and it doesn't have the latest and greatest Teams app or Zoom app, don't worry. You can always go to Teams Admin Center or Zoom Device Management Portal and upgrade separately the application. So the application layer completely works independently of that operating system. So keep that in mind. I think looking at the whole family, just to give you a sort of heads up before talking about all the details, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So we got the Gen 1 family, as we call it using the documentation. Gen 1 family is X30, X50, X70, G7500. The second generation, so Gen 2 X series, is X32, X52, X72 and the G62. So that is good to distinguish between each other. And also usually in the video I'm talking about, when I talk about features, which might be only available on the second generation, I will talk about and I will show you this sticker, so you know at least what is supported Gen 1 and what is supported on the latest and greatest Gen 2 device. Now, also the software, which we called in the past VideoOS, we call that now VideoOS to make it a bit easier. VideoOS 4.5.1 running on X series, standalone video device, so only the bar and the touch panel, and VideoOS Lite running on the V family, and that is the 151. But with the Lite version, there's no application and there's nothing on there, it's just the video bar, but still it has all the intelligence like director AI and noise block AI, so all those enhanced AI features are also available on the V family. And so this is why if there is an update on X series or G family, expect also an update on the V family. Just to keep the experience walking into a Windows-based room or walking to an Android-based room, and that the experience is the same for any user. And of course you can hook up the V family to your PC as a BYOD. So we use camera, speaker and mic with your WebEx or Zoom or Teams meeting, or you can create just a native Teams room or a native Zoom room to combine it with that Teams PC and that Windows PC. I think this is also a very interesting one. So you got a choice for every room, but the end user experience, expect that to be the same. Software upgrades and downgrades. This is always interesting discussions. People always ask me, coming from version X, how to get to version I, different options to upgrade, etc. So I've always included that in my VideoOS or VideoOS videos. So if you need to look back in earlier videos of those VideoOS updates, I would say check them out, because I always try to take you step by step to this process, because I know how important it is so that you get the expected experience after you upgrade those devices. Now, I will first do that for Studio X, as Studio X is combined then with the G series, so the G62, G7500, but also I will take you through this with the V family. And so what are the upgrades options for the V family? First off, the X family. Well, one of my favorites, which I use a lot when our events, when to do quick demonstration, is using the local web interface. So the X family, G family has a local web interface where you can connect to. Default username admin and the password is the last 6 digits of the serial number. So if you connect to the network, your laptop is on that same network, you can always connect to this web interface, and there you can force it to the latest and greatest versions. So you need to go to General, Device Management. There you point it to the Poly support site. That is important, because if it's set to Teams, it will have their Teams device management there. So you set it first and drop down to Poly support site, and then you can upgrade both the bar and the TC10. So make sure your TC8 or TC10 is also connected and paired with your Studio X. So they're both upgraded. It will automatically give you like, hey, there is a version found, and as long as you are on version 4.x, it will point you to that latest version. Now, with the TC8 or with the TC10, you will get a 6.4 release. So that is important. It's with numbering, it's a bit different, but I have a slide later on which will show you the exact numbers for your TC8 or TC10 devices. Also, what is important, set automatic updates. If you're doing that, I would recommend to set it during maintenance hours, that is also an option, but this is locally in the device. Personally, I would prefer to use PolyLens centralized management, where you're also able to work through several devices, upgrade them at a time slot, out of office, and then in the morning you're able to check if devices work correctly. And if you do this with the device itself, it will upgrade. You don't have any control during office, out of office hours, it will start updating the device. But with PolyLens, you can just take control and set it as a specific amount of time, upgrade, make sure you check it in the morning, which makes for me personally much more sense. And you can define a couple of devices as like a lab, a production, a test environment, put a couple of devices in those groups, and then you're able to push out several updates just to try out, because I've seen in practical that every environment behaves different. The networking, firewalling, teams, everything could be different. So it's always good before you start updating to do it first on 1 or 2 devices, check out the experience is correctly, and then you upgrade the rest of your devices. This is just me talking about the experience from the field. The next one is for our field engineers, so you can always create a USB stick and download the software from PolyLens. I will make sure I put a link there at the top that will show you where you can download it from PolyLens. Then you can download it, extract it on the root of the stick, make sure that it's FAT32 formatted, because otherwise it won't be recognized by Studio X. Make sure that it's correctly formatted, and then you should be just plug it in, and it should be able to find software and upgrade it. So if you don't have or limited internet connectivity, you go specific installation, or you're going to a demonstration or an event where you want to show the products, then this is, I think, a very, very handy one. Now, my favorite is PolyLens. With PolyLens, you can go up in software versions, or you can go down, which I think is very flexible. I've seen sometimes with upgrades that the network doesn't behave as it used to be, or something with firewalls or anything. Well, at that point you can always go back to the previous version and see if you're still running into that issue. So then you're able to troubleshoot very easily. And even if you just have a couple of endpoints, you can start using PolyLens. So in the basis, configuration, software upgrades, etc., it's freely available to start using that. There's more and more premium features coming in, which we call today PolyLens Room Pro license. It's also an interesting one that you can remotely control also the TC10, etc. But yeah, I will talk about that in a later video, because I think that is also a very, very interesting one. Now, the next option is update your Studio X and TC10 devices using Teams Admin Center. Now, there are some important points there. So in the Microsoft environment, you will see 4.5.0 as an update. Now, in this update, after you've updated your device to this release, you will have an option to enable AOSP authentication on your Studio X, and this will automatically enable this also on your paired TC8 or TC10. Keep that in mind. Now, in the next update on the Microsoft side, which will probably end of July, there's no option anymore. The AOSP is mandatory. And so you gotta make sure, if you want to use or you use policies currently on Android Device Administrator, which is moving away, it's all becoming now the AOSP, the AOSP device management. If you're going to use that and you're going to use those compliancy policies, make sure you prepare that. And I will put some information also in the description. In the next video, I will extensively talk about it and how to create policies in Teams, etc. But I just want to make you aware that keep in mind that you gotta test this. If you're using like Intune policies, the compliancy policies, test this out. So you tick in the box, enable that after you update it to 4.5.0 to 4.5.1, enable that and see if the devices stay online. Just as a small group, as through PolyLens, you can just dedicate that to a small group and see if the devices move smoothly over from device administrator to the AOSP device management. And if that works all good, then you're safe to go the other devices. But also if the next update is coming from the Microsoft side, then you don't have this option anymore as a tick in the box. So keep that in mind. Now, and the other option, of course, to update your devices is using Zoom Device Management Portal. So you will see automatically those updates coming up for those different video providers. Now, the next one is about the V series. So most of working through those updates is the same, but the V series is of course attached to a Teams Room PC or a Zoom Room PC. So you could separately manage these devices. So let's say you're using the V series as a BYOD device, then there's no way, of course, to centrally manage them. Now you can use Wi-Fi or you can use them on the LAN, and then you're still able to access the web interface. Similar as on Studio X, so you're able to upgrade to that latest version, the 151. A method which is also important and usable, but then first you need to enable the USB support, is download the software, also through the PolyLens, then get that on a USB stick, FAT32 formatted, and same as with the X series. And then after downloaded, you put the stick in, but first enable the USB ports on the web interface, because again, by default are the USB-A ports disabled for security reasons. Now the other method, similar as with the X series, is using PolyLens, so centrally managed devices, or using the PolyLens Room app on the Teams Room or on the Zoom Room PC, so manage it through the USB connector, or you can manage them through, if you got a USB BYOD, manage them through the Wi-Fi or a LAN. And then you can push out policies, you can push out configuration or software, and also you can go back in software as needed. So if you run into anything, you can always go back there using Lens. Now, one of the methods to upgrade the V series, which is different than from the X series, is you can hook them up to your laptop. And there you install the PolyLens Room desktop app, so not the Room app, but the desktop app, which is also managing headsets on your laptop or speakerphone or cameras. And so you can also hook that up to your laptop. So let's say you need to do a quick demonstration or you're setting up a room, and then you can always connect the V series through USB-C cable coming from the V series. You put the other side into the laptop. It will automatically be detected by the laptop and the Lens Room desktop app, and then you're enabled to initiate an upgrade by just running that through the Lens desktop app. So this is different. This is not possible with the X series, which is of course by itself a standalone device. Now, and the other method of course is like these are all Teams or Zoom or certified devices, the V series. So the Windows updates, if you got those PCs and you're running the Windows updates, also the updates will come through these channels. So keep that in mind. Alright, just to give you an indication, so how does this look like when you're going to update Studio X through the web interface? So first thing is you connect here. Using admin last digit of the serial number, connect to the IP address. So then you go to General, you go to Device Management. Now, if you point there directly to the Poly support site, you will see it's popping up with a new version. It could be when it is in Teams mode that it's set to Teams Device Management. And then you will see it will not prompt you for an update because it's waiting for Teams Admin Center. Now, to force it, set it to Poly support site. You will see it will prompt you for a new version, same as with the TC10. Make sure that that is paired. You click on Update All, and that will upgrade both the Studio X and both the TC10. So I use this a lot for my demonstration, quick setups, events, etc. So if you need to set it up quickly, then this is your way to go. Now, using like PolyLens is sort of similar. So you go in PolyLens, you go here to Manage, and first show you where to find the software. You go to Software Versions, so there you can create an offline USB stick. You put there in X32, for example, and here you can download the software and put it on a stick, extract it there, make sure it's FAT32 formatted. Again, happens to me also a lot. Put it in the USB port, the X, and we'll upgrade. The other method is by going to your device itself. So this is online, it's all registered there. Then you have access to all the settings of Studio X. There you also have a chapter here like software updates. You click on that, and similar here you can go up and down in software version, and we are as of now at version 4.5.1. You upgrade your devices, takes you 15 to 20 minutes. I always say just get a cup of coffee and you should be ready pretty soon. Now, an overview of the different software and build. So with version 4.5.1 and what is coming along. Now 4.5.1 is for X70, X30, X50, the G7500. And what you will see is that it will include, for example, E70 update 1.12.1. Similar with the X70, as soon as you upgrade to the 4.5.1, it will upgrade also the camera to 1.12.1. But it's good to always check. I've seen sometimes that the camera update maybe didn't go through, so always check this has got this latest version. So this is why I made this sheet, so you got a quick overview there what needs to be on the devices. Same as on your E60, even if you got your E60 connected to your X70, because that is also possible through USB, then you can also upgrade your E70 to the latest version, or you can connect your E70 like your E60 to your Lens desktop app. Same as with the V series, you can upgrade all those USB devices on your PC. I use that a lot for events, again for demonstrations, just to make sure that I'm on the latest and greatest. So here you see all the builds. So we are now at 4.5.1 and the build version here. So for all the devices, so with the TC8 and TC10, as you can see, we are at the touch control OS, a touch control operating system, which is now at 6.5.1 with the build number. So here you can check if everything is upgraded when you've done that. Alright, so these were the Gen 1 devices. Now on Gen 2. So these are the latest and greatest hardware devices. What comes along with the 4.5.1? So you got that great overview. Again, this is second generation, so you will be using the 4.5.1, the X72, X52 and X32, which is brand new. We'll talk about that in a bit later. And then we got like included with this release, again with the E70, you have the 1.12.1. So if you connect that to your G62 or G7500, you're able to update the E70 camera or the E60 camera. That will give you the 1136. And same as with the X72, it will include the 4.5.1, the latest 1.12.1 release for the built-in X70 camera, or E70 camera. So keep that in mind. I think this is really good, and always check. So if you upgrade those devices, check if the panel upgraded correctly and that the camera upgraded correctly, so that it's all aligned with the same version. You still see here the modular switch package 160. That is something which I have an update also later on in this video, because you don't need that configuration and software image anymore. We got now built-in StudioNet profile in the Netgear switch, but again, this is something I will talk about later, which is I think also really excited. Now with the touch panel TC8 and TC10, same, you will see here the 6.5.1 version and the build. So you got them for both of them, which is the TCOS version. Now talking about the Studio V line, also to give you an overview of the version. So we have version 1.5.1 for the V family, which is also based on the Gen 2 chipset. So this is why they're both aligned with similar AI features. Now we got for the V series the 1.5.1, which includes also the new E70 camera update. So that is always coming along. We got for the V72 the 1.5.1, and with the V12 you will see similar update, but that is a 1.4.6. So keep that in mind. This one you can install that through the Lens Room desktop app. Similar with the other devices, as soon as you connect that to your laptop, you're able to push out and upgrade those devices, which I usually do when I got a demonstration or something or a new package. Installing that in a customer, I usually connect the V series just to the laptop, upgrade it to make sure that you start your demo or your test with the latest and greatest on these devices. Upgrade routes. This is always an interesting one. I upgrade and downgrade routes, but this is pretty straightforward. If you are on a 4.x version, you got a green light to go to the 4.5.1. You will go from Android 10 to Android 10, then the new base version will be 4.5.1. You can always go back again, so if you're running into any issues, you can always go back and to try out previous version to see what's going on. The bars will be on Android 10 and the touch panels, the TC8 and TC10 will run on Android 11. And so this is probably if you're working on Teams Admin Center, you're working on Intune, then it's good to know which Android versions if you need to create policies for that. The downgrade use case, so if you need to go back, so you can always use when you are on 4.5.1, you need to go back, you can always go back to a different version, select that version in PolyLens, then automatically in the web interface you see it popping up and it will downgrade to that previous version. This is why I really like PolyLens, because you can go up, but you can also go down. Now, what is good to know is your Teams version will stay on that newer version. Also, when you do this downgrade, if you really want to downgrade the Teams version to the version which came along with the specific version, you need to do a pin reset. So as soon as you're running here, for example, the 4.4.3, you need to do a pin reset, and that will reset also the application to the version that came along with 4.4.3. So keep that in mind if you're troubleshooting. Now, what I'm really excited about is that out-of-box experience, which is getting improved with every new release. So making it easier for our customers and integrator to roll out those devices. Now, this counts for Gen 1 Studio X devices and Gen 2 Studio X devices. And how does this look like? Well, if you have your Studio X and your TC10 will prompt you at the beginning, not only for the time and the date, etc., which I will show you a bit in this video, but also do you want the TC10 to be hooked up to your Studio X, or do you want the TC10 to be a scheduling panel? So you can decide that in the beginning of the setup. If you choose it to be a room controller, after that it's able to set the video app. I think this is a really important one. You set the video app to be as a Zoom room or to be as a Teams room. This is a possibility just by simply clicking on the application. Now let me show you quickly how that looks like in this video. So you see on top of the screen, you see the IP address, you see the serial number. On the TC10 you get nicely prompt after you set it to be a room controller. You get prompt for your devices. It will automatically discover the Studio X32 here, for example. You see here an icon code. So you just need to punch in the icon code just to make sure that the TC10 matches the Studio X device. You confirm that. Then you're able to set the admin password there. So the default admin password is the last 6 digits of the serial number. You set it as a new password. The next one is getting it integrated into Lens. So really nice. And so we continue to do that setup. Integrated Lens if you want to. You set here the provider, for example, to be Teams. It installs the Teams application and you're ready to go. I think this is a really nice one. Just wanted to quickly show you that this video is available as a short on my channel, so you can find it back there if you want to review that. Now, how does this look like in your meeting room? For example, this is a Teams meeting room. Again, you will see here on the screen the IP address, the serial number, and it just points you to the TC10 controller where you just walk through the wizard. And as a final setting, you set it, for example, to want to be a Teams. and then after all you get your device login, you put in that code or your laptop, you're able to sign in the devices to Microsoft Teams. I think this is a really simple and easy one, and you're ready to go. Now, same is, for example, for a Zoom room. So you walk through the wizard here on the TC10, or if you don't have a TC10, you walk through this on the touchscreen. Now, you get to, at the end, if you set it to Zoom, you get to the activation code. You punch in the activation code in your Zoom device management portal, and yeah, the Zoom environment is ready to go. Really easy. And of course, we keep on optimizing this in newer software versions, so just stay tuned on that. I will review this every time if there are some updates there, so I will keep you updated on that. Now, I think the most exciting part of part 1 of the Studio X, the V series, the G series, the general updates are what's new. So I will take you in this part, take you to all the latest and greatest in this version. Not only the X series, the 451, but again, I'm talking about the V series, the 151, because both of those features are most of the times aligned with each other. But it's good to know what new features were introduced in those new versions. The first one is X32, which is fully unlocked now. It's already shipped to customers, and I think what is very important is the X32 comes most of the times with an older version, and probably the 426 out of fabric. So I would recommend to get your X32 to the latest and greatest version, the 451, which will unlock all the features. Now let me jump out of the presentation to show you quickly the difference between the X30 and the X32. So let me quickly grab them. Alright, here we have X30 and the X32. And what you immediately see is the difference in size. So the X32 got a much bigger sound chamber than the X30. So besides the camera, so the X30 had an 8 megapixel camera, and the X32 has a 20 megapixel camera. So that is really gives you a much better coverage, also with low lighting, but also if you're zooming into participants into the room with group framing or people framing, you get a much higher quality in the video experience. One of the things which is also interesting is the X30 was 110 degrees, the X32 is 120 degrees. So you will have a much broader view. So if you got tables closer to the screens, you're much better off with the X32. Now, what is good to know, they have exactly the same brackets. I think this is a good one. So you will see the brackets right here. Same if you got a wall bracket, you got a table bracket, or if you got any other bracket, able to reuse those brackets. On the back you can see the sound chamber. So here you see the bus reflex ports, where the X30 had only one bus reflex port there. Now, to show you the front side, let me uncover the plate without the bezel. Here we go. So you immediately see that the X30 is equipped with one speaker, mono, and the X32 will give you that fully immersive experience. So you got the left and on the right, so like in Zoom or in Teams, you have that spatial stereo, so it will also give you sort of that people talking from the left, we use the left speaker, people talking from the right, use the right speaker, so it will try to create that immersive experience there. There's a LED light was in the X30 integrated here in the bezel. With the X32 you will see the LED light here on top of the camera. Now, I think difference is really seeable with the X30 and X32. X32 is mentioned here also on the lens, so you see there X32, and here on the X30 it says the X30, so it will also show you there the difference, but there's absolutely a difference in size. The sound chamber of the X32 is much bigger. What I think is interesting is there's a lot of reverse mounts of the X30. So in the past, people reverse mounted that to make sure that the cables which are going right in here are hidden behind the screen. With the X32, it's also possible to reverse mount, because now when you install it like this under the screen, you will have cables going out here under the screen. So people want to reverse mount. You can do same thing with the X32, but now you don't need a different front plate. You can reuse the same front plate, and that fits immediately also here on the X32. So this is, I think, a really nice one. So you can do the same thing, hide the cables with a wall mount underneath the screen, hide all the cables behind the screen. You can like flip the image if you do that through the web interface or through poly lens. So you will have to make sure that that is correctly, and then you're able to use this new device. The bracket, again, is really the same. As you see right here, they both have this tripod connector, so you can use or reuse your table stand there, or you got a VESA mount, or you got like a wall mount. You can reuse any of those brackets also with the X32. So just a quick overview to show you the difference between the X30 and the X32. Let's jump back into the presentation. Alright, back to the presentation. So hopefully that gave you a good impression of the difference between the X30 and the X32. So I will probably do more videos on that, but yeah, just wanted to give you a quick impression on that. And one item, which I don't know if I mentioned that, but with the X32 you can also have a dual screen setup. So if you're looking for the future or for some new small rooms, you want to have a dual screen, that is also a possibility. So you can spread the content on a separate screen, and you can have the participants also on a separate screen. So that is good to know. And that works, of course, for Teams or for Zoom, with any platform that supports that dual screen option. Now, one item which I wanted to raise to your attention, because I see sometimes confusing, the X32, which we had in the past with the X30, which had a power supply, the X32 doesn't come along with any power supply. This is all about sustainability story, as less cables and as less power supplies as possible. So out of the box, it will depend on your switch supporting PoE++. So keep that in mind. If you don't have that, your switch doesn't support that, you need to order separately a PoE++ injector. So you put that just between the network and the device, and it's able to push that out. You can always try it, but at the end you will see an error message on the TV UI that not enough power is supplied. So I just wanted to raise that to your attention, because that is the difference between the X30 and X32, which is all about sustainability, as I said, and as less cables and as less power supplies as possible. Now switch gears to the V family, in this case specific to the V72. Of course, the 151 is also for the V52, but specifically on the V72 we got some new features. So probably if you received the V72, always check the version. Again, you can hook this up to your laptop and use the PolyLens desktop app. Got it installed, it's automatically detected, and then you can upgrade the device. Now, what is now fully unlocked with the V72 and the 151 release? Well, how do you manage the V72? Multiple ways. The first one is using LAN or Wi-Fi. There you can hook it up to PolyLens, for example, in a BYOD scenario. There's no way to manage it because different people are connecting to the bar. So here you're able to manage centrally by having its own connection. The other option is using it by connecting it to the Teams Room PC or the Zoom Room PC. Then the PolyLens Room app will manage the device through PolyLens using the USB connection. And you don't need the LAN or the Wi-Fi. You can use that, but yeah, it's already managed using the USB connector. Now, when you install 151, the LLM port is now enabled. So you're able to connect now for example, an additional table or ceiling mic. But be aware that you need an injector if you're going to do that, because the LLM port doesn't supply power by itself. And I know there's a lot of different rooms out there, a lot of challenging rooms, maybe a lot of windows or high ceilings. So then it would be great to have that additional ceiling mic further out in the room or an additional table mic. So be aware in this setup of the injector. The other thing is, if you want to have multiple ceiling mics, maximum up to 3, then I recommend to use the Netgear and the M4250. Here you can hook up multiple mics, also supply power to the mics, and you're able to use that throughout your meeting room. I think a very nice one to be extendable. Now, besides the IP table and ceiling mics, there is a new table mic option which became available, and these are the A2 table mics. A2 table mics are not available or shipped yet. These will become available after the summer, so around September. And the nice thing is that you can even match like the table color. So there's a sort of white gray color and there's the sort of black color. There's also a mute button on there, and these devices, A2 table mics, these work with the X family or with the V family, and depending on the device you have, it will depend on the number of mics you're able to hook up to. But of course, you know me, I will do a deep dive on this later on separately in the video. Now, these A2 table mics doesn't connect directly here to the LLM port. Now, you first need, of course, an injector, a PoE injector. Then you connect this up to bridge. This is the A2 audio bridge, and from the bridge you're able to connect the microphones. So you can do that and hook them all up to the bridge, or you can daisy chain them. So one exciting thing which I wanted to mention about the A2 table mics is that there's no specific configuration need. There's no manual intervention on the A2 table mics or on the bridge. It's all auto-tuned. They even have an AI chip built into them to filter out specific noise. It's just really a matter of you hook them up through that LLM port, and you're able to use those additional microphones in the room. Just depending, of course, on the device. That is the number of mics you can hook up, but further, it's all auto-tuned. Now, for the other devices, like the X52 or V72, they don't have that additional LLM port. But there will be an adapter available where you're able to have an additional LAN port by using the A port. It's translates that to a LAN port where you're able to use additional microphones also with these devices. So really nice. But you know, Jan, so I will do a detailed video on this. I will do an unboxing on this. So stay tuned, and again, always subscribe to my channel, and as soon as I post something on this, I will make sure that you got those updates available. Now, how do we bring this all into practical life? With the V72, of course, we got 2 cameras, which is always interesting for those larger rooms. So with the camera below, that one has a 120 degree, so it will pick up the participants here at the front. Then we got the second camera at the top, which is more a far-end camera and a far-end lens, which can pick up the participant further in the room. And the cameras will both work with each other to get the best shot. Now, if you need to enhance the audio, like high ceilings, a lot of glass, etc., so you're able to use the IP ceiling mics. So that is a possibility in combination with the Netgear switch to be able to use more of them. Or you can drop in the new A2 table mics. This is also now an interesting option. So if you got to be flexible with the table setup, etc., the A2 table mics are also really flexible in cables. So you can do it on top of the table, do it under the table. You got extension cables, so there's a lot of different scenarios available there, and interesting for the future to build out those rooms looking at the microphone possibilities. Now, one of the new features which became available in the latest release is the auto mic switching. which you are able to toggle on or off now. And that means combine microphones at the table, combine that with the microphones in the bar, or just use only the mics at the table. And yeah, that all depends on the room. I usually advise to just try it out. This is different than from, for example, if you're going to do speaker tracking. So if you want to do speaker tracking, you're still able to use that. So even if you use only the mics at the table, so you turn enable mic switching off, then still speaker tracking will work because these are different mics. Now this works now for the IP, like table mics, the seating mics, and you already had this available for the extension mic. So this was already available, for example, with Studio USB or with one of the other devices. We already had the extension mic where you're able to turn this on and off. So this is now also available for the IP mics. You can find that here in the local web interface, enable auto mic switching. So as soon as multiple mics are connected, you will have this option available. And also through PolyLens, you will see the auto mic switching. Again, I would just recommend that if you're going to set this up, just try it out. Sometimes it's better to only use the microphones at the table, because that's where most of the discussions are. But yeah, on the other hand, if people are also standing here, for example, across the screens or standing close to the bar, yeah, I can imagine that you might want to mix that. But just try it out in your environment and see what works best. Now, one of the items which I already discussed in my previous video, so of course I can put a link there, is the PolyLabs features. So these are features which are not officially supported in the general available software. So you cannot call the support desk, and these become available to just try out. And of course, we advise to try that out in a separate room. You can only enable those lab features using PolyLens. Now in lab, we have Voice Core AI, where I mentioned this, I showed you this extensively in the previous video, and we got people count report, which works today for the V and the X series. So counting the number of people who are using the room. Now, the whole goal is that customers provide feedback on those features using the form. So there is, in PolyLens, there is a form available coming along with this feature where you're able to provide feedback on that. So is it used a lot? Then a feature goes from the lab as a general supported feature. How do you activate those lab features? So you go into PolyLens. On the right side, you will see the option PolyLabs. And if you click on that, you will get a screen showing you all the features, all the lab features available. And there you have the option like activate. Really nice. You just hooked it up to a specific test group, which I recommend, or on a specific device, and then you will see that feature available on your Studio X device. Now, also depending on the device itself. So some features are not available on all of those devices. Now, if you need to provide feedback, you can always click on the feedback button, and here you can provide feedback on specific feature. And there's also a lot of explanation being done there, so I think really nice to play around with that. Now, after a while, evaluating those lab features, they become general available. So there's some of those features which got very positive feedback, and these are now general available. And one of them is, for example, the people on monitor filter, which is supported on different devices, so the X32 and the X52 and the V72. And what the camera does, it's able to distinguish, for example, when you use group framing, so you want to only frame participants in the room, but you got maybe participants also on the TV screens, then it's able to distinguish that. So you don't see any participants on those screens joining that meeting. So that camera is able to distinguish the difference between a 2D or a 3D person. So that is now a general supported feature. Same as for stationary people filter. This is now also general available, and it means that the camera is able to distinguish the difference between people on pictures which I see a lot, especially with some older buildings where you got some paintings around it. And it's able to distinguish the difference between participants here sitting at the table and participants or photos of people who are sitting next to them or in the back of the room, etc. And you're able to filter that out. But again, what is important? It is available on X30, X50, X32, the X52 or the V72, and probably it will become available on more devices, but these are the supported devices at the moment. What more do we got? I think this is also a really interesting one. I talked about this extensively already in some of the previous videos, so you can combine TC8 or TC10 not only as a touch panel to control your meeting room, which can be Teams or Zoom or anything, but also you can switch over in a flip page to AV controls to have the same panel as one. And this is, I think, a very interesting one. We're using a HTML5 interface. You can build like almost anything you want and you'll be able to control it. Now, we've made compatible Extron earlier and Lite work, and that means compatible means you're able to get through the authentication layer of those platforms. But now with the latest release, we added QSys and Crestron also. So if you click that on the button AV controls, you're able to jump to that page immediately without needing to punch in maybe some code or do some authentication or verify something. So you can see that more of those AV providers are moving over from operable, which works, but might need an authentication step. More providers will move over to the compatibility list. So that's very good to see. Now, one other new feature specifically to the TC10 as scheduling panel is that we already had lens support. So if you have a TC10 scheduling panel at the entrance of those meeting rooms, you're already able to manage those centrally, reboot them, setting specific configuration for time zones, etc. You're already able to do that. And also when you take it out of the box and you walk through the installation wizard, you get immediately prompt onboarding it to lens, so you don't have to worry about any local configuration there besides logging it into Teams or to Zoom. Now, what is important, you can also now provision the admin password for those devices, which is in the past, of course, the default is 6 digits of serial number, but this can now also centrally be provisioned, which makes life a lot easier for the people managing locally those devices and need to jump in for some reason into the local web interface. All right, let's continue. There's really a lot of exciting things, and most of the things got updated with every new release. Now, one of the things where I'm also excited about is using E60 or E70 as a companion camera. So you already have the video bar. It can be an X70 or can be X50, but you can use an additional camera and point that, for example, to a whiteboard, which can be E70 or the E60. Really nice. So how does that look like in a meeting room? So, for example, you got here a guy standing in front of the whiteboard. We're using here the E60, which is that optical zoom you would have, so very powerful. So you can reverse mount that across the ceiling. Separate ceiling mount available for that, but there's also a tripod underneath, so you can use practically any ceiling mount. So if you reverse mount it, the image will automatically rotate. What you can do is when you hook this up to your X70, or you can even do that over IP to your X72 in combination with the Netgear, or directly connected on the LLN using PoE. So there's a lot of options there. Now you need to define then the zones. So where do you want to have the camera when everybody is there? Now, as long as everybody is sitting at the table, it will give you the wide shot. So you will have the wide shot at the blue part of the room. Now, as soon as somebody enters here in front of the whiteboard, and you can program that in the X60 camera through the web interface of the X series. Now, then it will automatically go directly walk to the whiteboard and follow that presenter. Really nice. It will follow the presenter here on the fly. So there's a lot of videos about that if you want to see that experience, but that is, I think, really powerful. And as soon as the user goes away and go to sit here, it will automatically give you that white shot again. Now, if multiple people are going to stand in that red area, it will also fall back to a sort of group framing, so it will be able to show multiple participants here standing here in front of the whiteboard. Now, where do you configure that tracking area? Well, you need to go into the web interface, for example here of your X52. You go to your tracking options and there you will be able to see frame presenter as one of the options there. If you put that into frame presenter, it will give you a new option that is configure. If you press configure, it will give you an overview of the camera, which is here underneath the main camera. It's a very small camera, but it will give you a total overshot of the room. And that is where you do the programming of the red part, which can, for example, be the stage. So if nobody is in that red area, it will show you that staging area. And you can program the presenter tracking zone. So that area is the area where as soon as anybody goes in there, it will go to that person and it will follow that person on the fly. It's like your security cameras at home. Now, going a bit further and deeper in connecting multiple cameras, because I think this is an important one which has been enhanced with this release. Now, with the first generation, we already had the possibility to connect cameras over USB. So with the X30, X50, X70, you have the possibility to connect the E60 or the E70. And you could even use extenders with that, and the release notes you can see the supported extenders. Now, with the second gen, so with the G62 or with the X52, X72, you can also use IP in combination with the Netgear. Or you can still use USB if you want, but not both. You cannot mix IP and USB because that will confuse the application running on top of those devices. And there's also the StarTech USB hub because the G62 has only 2 USB ports, and with the StarTech hub you suddenly have 6 USB ports available because you could have a touchscreen, additional cameras, you could have an audio DSP externally, so there could be a lot of USB connected devices, and then of course you need an additional. And this one, the StarTech, is officially supported, the ST4300, as you see right here. And I will make sure that I put a reference to this hub in the comments. Now, you can connect them, all those different cameras up to the devices. It's recommended not to use the remote control because that could confuse the tracking. Can imagine you want to keep that with the camera because in case maybe tracking is stuck or something or it doesn't go into a specific mode, you're able to get that anyway, and just for troubleshooting try things out. But in general, you shouldn't need the remote control because all the control is on the Teams UI or in the Zoom UI available to switch between those different tracking options. Now, demystifying the USB connected camera. So as I said, you need an additional USB hub if you're gonna connect multiple of them, which can be a touchscreen, a third-party USB audio, DSP, could be anything. Let me walk them through. And again, this is extensively also in the documentation. So of course, I will make sure that the documentation is also in there. These are also living documents, which will be updated with every release. So again, we got 2 USB ports. So if you want to go up in cameras, a number of cameras, you need the hub or have the other devices available. Now, with Microsoft Teams, you have a support for max 2 USB cameras today. And of course, don't forget that you need the Pro license to even support multiple cameras. With Zoom, you need the hub because you can connect 3 USB cameras, but that is not possible on the G62 itself. And so there the hub will come along to connect additional devices. And also again, if you need touchscreen, you got extra DSP, and of course you also need that USB hub. Same in the poly mode, you can connect up to 3, so you need the hub coming along to build it up. Now, if you still have the G7500, that is also a possibility, but the hub is not officially supported. So again, you have the same Max in Teams, Max 2. With Zoom, you got up to 3, or you can connect an HDCI because the G7500 has also the HDCI port, but you can connect up to 3 directly to the G7500. And in poly mode, you can even connect up to 4. So you can use like the USB ports, you can do 3, plus you can even use the HDCI port, but that's only supported in the poly mode, and keep that in mind. The switching is not automatically with Android today, and so you have to manually switch between the cameras. Keep that in mind, and you need the Pro license. With Zoom, there's different behavior in Android. You're able to put multiple cameras at the same time in the meeting. So that is, I think, a really nice one. So if you got that educational room or something and you want to have a teacher in combination with students, you want to have them all in one video frame, and that is only possible in Zoom today on Android. And keep that in mind. Now, and of course, Icon Ranger extenders are supported with those cameras. So if you need to extend USB, and you got longer cables from the poly side. So we got 20 meters USB cables, we got 10 meters USB cables, and these are sort of fiber USB cables. There's even a 40 meter USB cable. So there are options besides the extenders. There's also longer cables which are sort of active USB cables, sort of fiber USB cables, which are supported with those devices, and it's all documented nicely in the release notes. So yeah, you will have a good overview there on what is tested and what is officially supported. And lastly, don't mix the IP and USB cameras. This is also mentioned in the release notes, in the documentation, because that could confuse the application. It might work, but yeah, it's not officially something supported, and yeah, could just lead to misconfigurations in those meeting rooms. Now, some references. So as I said, this is all documented, for example, in the integrator reference guide. I will make sure that the links are under the video in the description, where you nicely see, as you see here, with the USB hub connected to the G62. There's an additional audio DSP, which can be a Shure, a Biamp, or QSC. We got here, for example, 2 E70 cameras and 1 E60 camera, all connected here through that USB hub, and it's all pointing to that nice documentation. If there is any issues, they will be able to back you up to get this working as soon as possible. Another scenario also coming from the integrator reference guide. So this is the G62 in combination with the Netgear switch. So we have the E60 here connected to the USB port of the G62. Additionally, we have now the Netgear switch. So we hook up here two table mics, and this is going back into the LLM port of the studio net port of the G62. And then of course we got the connection here to the corporate switch, where also the TC10 is in. And that makes sure that it's able to connect to the internet and to the different video platforms. Now, additionally, for the audio, because we don't have any audio here, so we have a soundbar connected through the 3.5mm port to use that as the audio, as the soundbar here on the screen. So you're able to build all sort of scenarios in those environments. And the integrated reference guide will really help you to guide you to those different room setups. Now, that is a story about USB connected cameras. The next one, we're talking about IP connected cameras, and that makes life a lot easier looking at longer cables, but you can go with cut, you can go up to 100 meters. So you're much more flexible in those environments. Now, what is important is G7500 delivered PoE Plus to those cameras. With the G62, which is smaller and has only one LLM port, it delivers no power. So if you're gonna connect one camera, you need to use an injector. But if you're gonna connect multiple of them, you need the Netgear switch, the M4250. You need to combine that, and then you can hook up multiple cameras, hook up multiple microphones. You're able to combine different settings. So keep that in mind with the G62. Now, looking at the number of cameras to be supported over IP in combination with the Netgear switch. So with Teams, we have a maximum support today of 3 cameras. So I think this is a really nice one. This was 1 or 2 in the past, so now we have 3. And with microphones, you can have a maximum up to 3. So 3 table mics or 3 seating mics. And of course, you require that Netgear switch. In Zoom, you have a maximum of 3. So 3 cameras, which can be same, which can be the E60 or the E70 cameras. And you can use either seating mics or table mics, but also a maximum of 3 IP cameras. Same for poly mode, a maximum of 3 cameras. With the G7500, it's a bit different. There it needs to be directly connected to the LLM port. So there's no support for the Netgear switch. So there, for example, if you got 2 IP table or 2 IP seating mics, you only have 1 like LLM port available here to connect 1 camera. Same in Zoom, so you have 1 camera, you got 2 table mics or 2 seating mics, and same for poly mode, as we're limited to the number of ports on the G7500. Now, keep also in mind that the whole experience is manually camera switching. Same here, so check the release notes which I'm mentioning here on the support, but you need to manually select the camera. So you have multiple cameras connected. There is a drop down menu for the end user where it's able to select another camera and another view. So that is, I think, important. In the Zoom mode, it's different. There you're able to have multiple cameras in the meeting. Now, same here, don't mix IP and USB cameras. If you go the IP route for your microphones or for your cameras, stay there and then all should be working fine. But don't mix this with a USB camera. You can of course mix this with a third-party DSP, for example your G62, but not specifically with a camera. Again, integrated reference guide got some great examples. So here you see the Netgear switch, which is connected here up to the E70. We got here 2 IP table mics connected to the Netgear, all connected up to the G62 to the LLM port, and we got the other cable going out to the corporate network where your TC10 is connected to. And lastly, we got the soundbar, because of course we need speakers. You could also use speakers in the screen, but I think it's always nice to have the external soundbar to get that full immersive audio. So you can connect a soundbar, put that up to the 3.5mm port, and then you will have microphones, speakers and cameras all available in that meeting room. And again, integrate the reference guide. These examples are all documented. I will make sure that I put links under in the description so you have them all available by hand. How does the experience look like when you want to pair up the E70 and the E60? First off, make sure that those cameras are running the latest version, because otherwise you won't have the IP, the LAN port enabled. Now, as soon as you then hook them up, and by default they're probably connected over USB, which will mention connected, well, you need to put those cameras with the LAN port on that LLM port. So directly connected, for example, to the G7500 or you directly connect these to the G62 or through the Netgear or through PoE. Now, as soon as you disconnect the USB port, it will show up as available devices. Similar experience you have with the TC8 and TC10 to pair them. It will mention it here as unpaired. Now, what you need to do is you click here on the pairing button. As soon as you do that, you should be able to receive a message. E70 is paired. There could be a reboot, so it could take some time, and you hear the shutter open up and closing. That means that it is rebooting. It's rebooting in the IP mode, and when it's all finished and ready, you should be able to see here the LLM like icon that it is all connected, and there's in behavior not any difference. So you're able to do software updates over the LLM port. You're able to set different camera tracking options, etc. But you suddenly have the flexibility to use those cameras without any crazy USB extenders, which always could lead to challenges. I've seen it in the past, but if you use extenders, make sure you use the one which are tested or are really good. I think that is important. But on the other end, you got now the IP connectivity available with those cameras. So gives you, I think, a much more stable connection with the codec, and much more AV flexible connection. Now, lastly, what I want to take you through is the configuration of the Netgear switch, which been simplified. So in the past, you'll remember you had to download that configuration package, that software package. It was coming from Polylens side that you need to push out to the M4250. But now we have a profile. So from version 30.05.10, we have now a Studio Net profile. Similar as Shure or any of the other providers, we have now our own configuration profile. So it's just a matter of hooking up your laptop to the OLB, the out-of-band port, the configuration port, or using Netgear Engage if you got multiple devices of them, and you just assign that specific configuration profile to the specific ports that you want to use, and it will also show you that Poly logo. Really nice, and simplifies the situation a lot, because in the past you had to update to that specific version, upload the configuration file, which was sometimes also challenging, but now we got this all built into the Netgear software. So I think this is a really positive one. There's videos coming up. So we're working on new videos where we're showing some of those things together with Netgear. So expect some new videos on my channel soon to walk you through all this step by step. Now, if you're looking for the specific versions which are coming along within the 4.5.1, I would say just check out the release notes, and of course in my next video, part 2, I will dive deeper into the specific on what's new. Also looking at the compatibility with third-party DSPs, with different cameras, etc. This is all well documented in the release notes. Also, we'll make sure that in the description you got the reference guides, like the integrator reference guide, the compatibility guide and showing you a lot of the supported and unsupported scenarios, just to make sure that you have the right guidelines in the usage of those different meeting rooms. And that is part 1 of version 4.5.1, which is in general an update on the X series, the V series and the G series. And here ends the coffee tech break update from Jan. Hopefully you enjoyed it. At least I enjoyed it, all the making. And as I said, this is part 1, more of a generic update on the VideoOS Lite for the V series. A lot of things going on. Part 2, I will do a dedicated video on that, but also on the Microsoft, on the Zoom and the Google. There's a lot of things going on, especially on the Microsoft side with AOSP. So I'm gonna take you through that step by step, how to create policies, how to enable it, etc. So just stay tuned for that. If you got any questions or comments, just recommend to put them under the video. I will try to answer them as good as possible. Now, for now, I can just say thank you for watching, and I'm looking forward to see you back in the next video.